I've been working on a pattern for you, or in particular a series of stitches that produce this nice, lovely raised pattern. It is called the garter stitch ribbing, and what it is that I have used 6 rows of garter stitch followed by 6 rows of stockinette. I'm sorry, 4 rows of stockinette, 6 rows of garter, 4 rows of stockinette. And this can be done in one color and it's just beautiful, or in this case I've used 2 different colors so that I can really highlight this garter stitch ribbing. It's not technically ribbing, but it looks like ribbing. So I cast on 20 stitches. This works for any number of stitches, and basically let's just get started. I'm going to the white yarn here, and what I've done is I've made sure that I've captured or carried up the side this pink yarn, because if I don't do that, then I end up with big loops on the edge that wouldn't be quite as pretty. So I've just basically made sure that when I start this row, that pink yarn will have been caught and won't be leaving an unsightly loop. So all we do really with the white is knit all the way across, plain old knit stitch. And remember, we said a little bit earlier in a video that when you do 2 rows of knit stitch back to back, you end up with a ridge, and that's what we're creating by doing 6 rows of the knitting. We are creating, in essence, a series of 3 ridges, which is kind of highlighted by this flat stockinette stitch. So I'm just going to continue knitting. I'm going to do 6 rows of this, and I'm sure through some TV magic we can make that happen very quickly. Okay, and I'm just finishing up with my 6th row of the knitting, creating 3 rows of garter stitch, and then we'll be moving on to our 4 rows of stockinette stitch in the pink color. So I can see that I've done a good job of carrying that yarn up along the side. This pink yarn has been caught by the white yarn anytime I came back to that end. And so when I switch over to the pink yarn, I need to make sure that my white yarn is caught up by that. So the first row will be done with knitting, and so all I'm going to do is take my ball of yarn and slide it up and over that pink yarn, so that when I go to knit, that white yarn will be caught up in behind this stitch. And so for the first row of stockinette, we knit across the row, just as we were doing with the white. And you know, I love these Lion Brand yarns. They are so soft and wonderful feeling in my hand. And I think the contrast here between the more fuzzy white and the more, I guess it's still a little fuzzy, the pink is, but it's less so. This white really seems to pop out against that backdrop of pink. And I think if I were to continue with this pattern, I think this would be a really cute scarf or a panel on a sweater. It would be longer on a sweater, but it's just a really nice texture. Gosh, even a pillow covering would be just spectacular in this. Now, so for stockinette stitch on our return trip on the wrong side, we're going to be purling the stitches. I always give a little help on that first one until I get my tension. I'm just going to purl all the way back over. And when we get to the end, we'll make sure that our white yarn is caught up. We just have 4 rows of this and it goes very quickly. This is good knitting for while you're watching your favorite movie or television show, because you're not really counting stitches, you're just counting rows. And sometimes that sort of knitting is just really, you know, it's relaxing and it's not taxing. And friends, that's what I'm all about. I like to unwind with my knitting. Don't get me wrong, I like the challenging projects too, because they're so much fun to complete. But sometimes it's just nice to sit back and relax. For instance, today it's pouring heavily here, and I don't want to be outside, so a little knitting project for me is just perfect. Just perfect. Okay, so we're getting up here to the end, and I'm going to show you one more time just how to make sure that you're capturing the yarn. That's called carrying it up the side. So I know we're going to be knitting, and I need to make sure that this white yarn is caught up, so I'm just bringing it over the pink and around to the back, and I can continue on. This row will be knit followed by 1 row of purl, and that will have completed our, at least this part of the pattern. So let's get all caught up and I'll see you at the end. Coming up to the end of our 4th row of stockinette stitch in the pink, and we'll be able to have a look at our progress and see how pleased we are with this beautiful texture. Not only that, the pink and white is just so soft visually, and the yarn as well. Very nice tactile experience. So there you go, that is all there is to it. I did need to mention to you at the beginning, and I think I'll do that at this point. Your cast on row at the very beginning of the project will count as 1 row of the garter stitch, or half of a ridge. So at the very beginning you've cast on, then you will do 5 rows of the knit stitch. That makes for the even 3 ridges, and then 4 rows of stockinette, which is knit 1 row, purl 1 row, knit 1, purl 1, and then 6 of knit in the white, and so on and so forth. And it's really just so squishy and soft and lovely. I know you'll enjoy this. Make it as big as you want, as long as you want. Just have fun with it. That's all I ask.